Long ago, in the days when Saul ruled over Israel, a dangerous enemy rose against God's people. The enemy was the Philistines. They were powerful warriors, skilled in battle, and determined to conquer Israel. One day, the Philistine army gathered for war in a valley called Elah. On one hill stood the army of Israel. On the opposite hill stood the Philistine army. Between them, a wide valley stretched across the battlefield. Both armies prepared for war. But before the battle could begin, something terrifying happened. From the Philistine camp, a giant warrior stepped forward. His name was Goliath. He was not an ordinary soldier. Goliath was enormous. The Bible describes him as standing more than 9 feet tall. His armor was made of heavy bronze, shining in the sun like fire. A massive helmet covered his head. Bronze armor protected his chest and legs. The spear he carried was enormous. The iron tip alone weighed more than many swords. A shield bearer walked in front of him, carrying a large shield. When Goliath stepped onto the battlefield, every soldier noticed him. Then the giant shouted across the valley. His voice echoed like thunder.
"Why do you come out to fight? Choose one man to come down and fight me. If he defeats me, the Philistines will serve Israel. But if I defeat him, you will serve us."
The challenge shocked the entire army of Israel. No one moved. No one stepped forward. Even the soldiers who were known for bravery felt fear in their hearts. Goliath continued to mock them. He laughed at them. He insulted them. And day after day, he returned to the valley, shouting the same challenge. Morning after morning, evening after evening. For 40 days, the giant stood there. 40 days of fear. 40 days of silence. Even King Saul, the leader of Israel, was afraid. Meanwhile, far from the battlefield, a young shepherd named David was living a simple life. David was the youngest son of a man named Jesse. While his older brothers were soldiers in the army, David stayed home, taking care of his father's sheep. Day after day, David guided the sheep through fields and hills. He protected them from danger. He led them to water. He watched over them carefully. Though he was young, David had already faced danger before. One day a lion attacked his flock. Another time, a bear tried to carry away one of the sheep. But David fought both animals. With courage, he rescued the sheep. Through those moments, David learned something important. God was always with him. One day, Jesse called David and gave him an assignment. "Take this food to your brothers," Jesse said. "They are with the army. Bring them bread and grain, and find out how they are doing." Early the next morning, David packed the supplies. Then he began his journey toward the battlefield. When he arrived, the scene was intense. Soldiers were preparing for war. Shields clashed. Voices shouted commands. The sound of marching feet filled the air. David left the supplies with the keeper and ran to greet his brothers. While he was speaking with them, something happened. Across the valley, the giant appeared again. Goliath stepped forward and shouted his challenge, just as he had done for 40 days. The soldiers around David became terrified. Some ran away. Others hid. David looked around in confusion. He could not understand why everyone was so afraid. He turned to the soldiers nearby and asked,
"Who is this man? Who defies the armies of the living God?"
The soldiers explained everything. They told David about the giant. They told him how no one dared to fight him. They even told him about the reward the king had promised. But David was not thinking about rewards. He was thinking about something else. He could not accept that someone was insulting God and his people. David's older brother heard him speaking and became angry. "Why are you here?" his brother said. "Who is taking care of those sheep?" But David calmly replied,
"I was only asking a question."
Soon, someone reported David's words to King Saul. The king was curious. So David was brought before him. King Saul looked at the young shepherd.
"You cannot fight this man. You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior since his youth."
But David answered with confidence,
"My lord, I take care of my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear attacks the flock, I go after it. I rescue the sheep. The Lord who rescued me from the lion and the bear will rescue me from this giant."
King Saul saw the courage in David's heart. Finally, he agreed.
"Go, and may the Lord be with you."
Saul then gave David his own armor. A bronze helmet. Heavy armor. But when David tried to walk, he could barely move.
"This armor does not fit me."
So he removed it. Instead, David took his shepherd's staff. Then he walked to a nearby stream. He carefully selected 5 smooth stones. He placed them in his shepherd's pouch. In his hand, he held his sling. Then, David began walking toward the giant. When Goliath saw the young shepherd approaching, he began to laugh. He could not believe it. The great army of Israel had sent a boy.
Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?
The giant cursed David.
Come here. I will give your flesh to the birds.
But David stood firm. And he answered the giant.
"You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel."
The battlefield grew silent. Everyone watched. Then the giant began to move toward David. But David ran toward him. Quickly, David reached into his pouch. He took out 1 stone. He placed it in his sling. He swung the sling around. And around. And around. Then he released it. The stone flew through the air, straight toward the giant. It struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The giant staggered. Then, the mighty warrior fell to the ground. The battlefield froze. The giant who had terrified an entire army was defeated. David ran forward. He stood over the fallen giant. And with Goliath's own sword, the battle was finished. When the Philistine army saw their champion fall, they panicked. They ran away. The army of Israel shouted with victory and chased them away. That day, a young shepherd defeated a giant. Not because of strength, not because of weapons, but because of faith. And the story of David reminds us of something powerful. The giants in our lives may look impossible. They may look stronger, bigger, and overwhelming. But when we trust God, no giant is too great. Because the battle belongs to the Lord.